Is sugar aging your face faster than the sun? The honest answer, based on the current evidence, is more complicated than a simple yes or no. UV radiation is still the single largest driver of visible skin aging, accounting for approximately 80% of facial aging signs according to research published by Fourtanier and colleagues in Clinical, Cosmetic and Investigational Dermatology in 2013, building on the intrinsic versus extrinsic aging framework established by Dr. Barbara Gilchrist in 1989. But here is what that 80% figure hides. Glycation, the process by which sugar damages your skin from the inside, operates through entirely different mechanisms that sunscreen cannot touch, compounds with UV damage through a process called glycoxidation, and is almost completely ignored by the skincare industry. For anyone who already uses sunscreen, glycation may be the dominant remaining threat to your skin. This video breaks down the science of both pathways, how they interact, and why addressing only one of them leaves you vulnerable to the other. By the way, there's a 28-day anti-glycation plan called Sugar-Proof Skin and a companion recipe guide called The Anti-Age's Kitchen, with 60 meals designed to fight sugar aging from the inside. Links in the description. Now the science. Let's start with what the sun actually does to your skin, because understanding the mechanism is essential for comparing it to glycation. When UV radiation hits your skin, it triggers a cascade of collagen destruction. A landmark study published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 1997 by Dr. Gary Fisher and colleagues at the University of Michigan demonstrated that a single exposure to UV radiation dramatically increases the expression of three specific enzymes called matrix metalloproteinases, or MMPs. These enzymes are MMP1, also called collagenase, which directly degrades collagen fibers, MMP3 or stromatolin 1, which activates other MMPs and degrades extracellular matrix components, and MMP9, a gelatinase that breaks down collagen fragments further. Fisher's team found that after just one UV exposure at 2 minimum erythema doses, MMP1 activity increased 4.4-fold and MMP9 activity increased 2.3-fold. At the mRNA level, the induction was even more dramatic. Fisher's 2002 review noted that MMP1 and MMP3 mRNA levels were induced several thousand-fold by UV irradiation. The combined action of these three enzymes can fully degrade skin collagen. This is an acute enzymatic rapid destruction pathway. UV hits your skin, your cells produce these enzymes, and they chew through collagen. And 95% of the UV radiation reaching Earth's surface is UVA, which penetrates into the deep dermis where collagen lives. Only about 5% is UVB, which is mostly absorbed in the epidermis and causes sunburn. Sunscreen, when applied correctly and reapplied, can block a significant portion of this UV damage. That is why dermatologists recommend it so strongly, and that recommendation is well supported by evidence. Sunscreen works on this pathway. It is effective at what it does. But here is the catch that almost nobody mentions. Fisher's 1997 study also found that procollagen synthesis, the production of new collagen, was near completely suppressed for 24 hours after UV exposure. So UV does not just destroy existing collagen, it temporarily shuts down the production of new collagen at the same time. This double-hit destruction of the old and suppression of the new is what makes UV damage so visible so quickly. Now here is what glycation does, and why it is a fundamentally different problem. Glycation does not degrade collagen. It cross-links it. When sugar molecules in your bloodstream bond to collagen proteins and form advanced glycation end products, those AGs create covalent bridges between collagen fibers. The collagen does not disappear. It becomes stiff and rigid. A 2023 study by Zhang and colleagues in PLOS ONE measured this directly and found that aged, glycated collagen fibrils were rougher, stiffer, harder, and more prone to fracture under stress. Glycation also damages the proteins that hold your skin layers together. Research published in Circulation showed that glycation of laminin reduces its binding to type 4 collagen, compromising the structural integrity of the connection between your epidermis and dermis. And glycation of fibronectin prevents fibroblasts from attaching properly, which suppresses new collagen production. So glycation is a slower cumulative process compared to the rapid enzymatic destruction triggered by UV. Collagen has a half-life of approximately 15 years, confirmed by Verzile and colleagues using radiocarbon dating. Over that lifetime, collagen can undergo up to a 50% increase in glycation damage, according to Skin Therapy Letter. The damage builds year after year on the same fibers because they are not replaced fast enough. Glycation and UV damage attack collagen from opposite directions. UV degrades it, glycation stiffens it, and they interact through a process that makes both worse. The interaction between UV and glycation is called glycoxidation, a term coined by researchers Baines and Monnier in the early 1990s. They discovered that certain AGs, including two well-documented markers called CML and pentacidine, are actually glycoxidation products, meaning their formation requires both glycation and oxidation. Neither process alone is sufficient. Dr. Helene Pajon and colleagues published research in 2013 showing that aged human skin is more susceptible than young skin to accumulating glycoxidation products from sun exposure. Her 2021 study went further, demonstrating that UVA exposure combined with glycation intensified the expression of MMP1, MMP3, and pro-inflammatory cytokines compared to either factor alone. This means UV and glycation are not independent threats, they amplify each other. UV accelerates AG formation, and AGs make skin more vulnerable to UV damage. The relationship is synergistic, not additive. There is an even more insidious mechanism at work. AGs themselves act as endogenous photosensitizers. A study by O'Connor and colleagues published in the Journal of Dermatological Science in 2001 showed that pentazidine, a well-characterized AG cross-link, absorbs in the UVA range at approximately 335 nanometers, and upon UVA irradiation, generates active oxygen species including singlet oxygen and hydroxyl radicals that impair human dermal fibroblasts. Wondrak and colleagues at the University of Arizona published a comprehensive review in photochemical and photobiological sciences in 2005 classifying AGs explicitly as endogenous photosensitizers that mediate skin photodamage through both type 1 and type 2 photochemical pathways. What this means is that the more AGs you have accumulated in your skin, the more damage each minute of sun exposure causes, because your own tissue is converting UV energy into additional oxidative damage. This is a compounding effect. More AGs make UV more destructive, and UV generates more AGs. It is a vicious cycle that accelerates with age. Now let me address the question in the title directly. Can we say sugar ages your face faster than the sun? Based on the available evidence, for the general population, UV radiation remains the single largest contributor to visible facial aging at approximately 80%. That figure comes from Fourtanier and colleagues in 2013, and it is the best current estimate. However, there are several reasons why this comparison is more nuanced than it appears. First, the 80% figure applies to the general population, which includes people who do not use sunscreen consistently. If you are someone who wears sunscreen daily, avoids peak sun, and wears protective clothing, you have already reduced your UV exposure substantially. For you, glycation becomes a much larger proportion of the remaining damage because you have addressed the dominant factor but done nothing about the second one. Second, glycation is classified as intrinsic aging in the traditional framework established by Gilchrist in 1989, meaning it is grouped with chronological, genetic, time-dependent aging. But this classification is misleading. As dermatologists Nguyen and Kata argued in their 2016 paper in Skin Therapy Letter, titled Sugar Sag, Glycation and the Role of Diet in Aging Skin, diet-driven glycation is clearly modifiable and environmentally influenced, making the intrinsic classification inaccurate. Glycation is not something that just happens because you get older. It is accelerated by sugar consumption, by high-heat cooking methods, and by dietary AGs. A 2010 study by Dr. Jaime Uribari in the Journal of the American Dietetic Association showed that broiling chicken produces approximately 5,800 kilounits of AGs per 100 grams, while boiling the same chicken produces only about 1,100 kilounits. That is roughly 5 times more AGs from the same food just from how you cook it. The traditional binary of intrinsic versus extrinsic aging does not capture this. Some researchers now argue for a 3-category model: intrinsic aging, extrinsic aging from UV and pollution, and metabolic aging from glycation and diet. This 3-category model more accurately reflects the science. Third, glycation operates through mechanisms that none of the standard anti-aging interventions address. Sunscreen blocks UV but does nothing to stop glycation. Retinoids like tretinoin and retinol increase collagen production, which is valuable, but they cannot break existing AGG crosslinks. There is no known topical ingredient that can cleave AGG crosslinks in the dermis. The only drug specifically designed to break AG crosslinks was elagibrium, also known as ALT 711, and it showed initial promise in a 2001 study by Dr. David Cass published in Circulation, but subsequent trials did not confirm efficacy, and the drug was never brought to market. No AG crosslink breaker has ever been approved for skin use. This means that once AGs form in your collagen, they are essentially permanent for the life of that collagen fiber, which can be approximately 15 years based on research by Verzile and colleagues. Fourth, there is the issue of methyl glyoxal. Methylglyoxal is a highly reactive glycation precursor that circulates in your bloodstream after sugar consumption. Research by Fourtanier published in the Annals of the New York Academy of Sciences in 2005 established that methylglyoxal is up to 20,000 times more reactive than glucose in forming Ag. Your body has a defense system against methylglyoxal called the glyoxylase system, which includes glyoxylase 1 and glyoxylase 2, and it converts approximately 99% of methylglyoxal into harmless D-lactate under normal conditions. But when blood sugar is chronically elevated, methylglyoxal production increases dramatically, and the glyoxylase system has limited capacity for upregulation. Research by Rabbani and Fourtanier published in Diabetes in 2014 confirmed that in diabetes, methylglyoxal levels rise and overwhelm the system. You do not need to be diabetic for this to matter. Every high-sugar meal increases methylglyoxal in your bloodstream. Over time, this steady assault produces Ags that accumulate in your collagen, and sunscreen provides zero protection against this process. Fifth, fructose makes this worse. Fructose is approximately 8 to 10 times more reactive than glucose in forming Ags, confirmed by research published in the International Journal of Molecular Sciences by Levy and colleagues in 2017. High fructose corn syrup and table sugar both deliver fructose into your system. So the average person consuming 71 grams of added sugar per day, which is roughly 17 teaspoons, is flooding their body with compounds that form Ags at rates far faster than glucose alone would suggest. So here is the honest conclusion. For the general population, UV is the larger contributor to visible skin aging, but glycation is a significant, underestimated, and almost completely unaddressed contributor that operates through mechanisms no standard skincare product can touch. For people who already protect against UV, glycation is the dominant remaining modifiable factor. And because UV and glycation compound each other through glycoxidation, ignoring glycation makes your sun protection less effective than you think. Want to do something about this? Sugar-Proof Skin is the 28-day anti-glycation plan that walks you through stabilizing blood sugar, supporting your glyoxylase enzyme system, and changing cooking methods day by day. And the Anti-Age's Kitchen gives you 60 recipes using those low-age cooking methods and anti-glycation ingredients, so you are not just reading about what to do, but actually doing it. Both links are in the description. There is also a concept worth mentioning that some dermatologists call sugar face. It is not a formal diagnosis, but it describes a cluster of facial features that appear in people with high sugar consumption, under-eye bags and dark circles from glycation, weakening the delicate periorbital collagen, sagging and jowling from cross-linked collagen, losing its elasticity, dullness and yellowing from yellow pigmented AGA molecules identified by Agiri and colleagues in 2024 in the International Journal of Molecular Sciences, and fine lines that deepen because stiffened collagen cannot hold the skin smooth. These features overlap with photoaging but tend to emphasize sagging and loss of firmness rather than the pigmentation and coarse wrinkling that characterize sun damage. Photoaging from UV tends to produce coarse wrinkles, mottled pigmentation, freckling, solar lentigine, sometimes called age spots, and a leathery texture. Glycation-driven aging tends to produce sagging, loss of firmness, sallow or yellow skin tone, and fine lines that appear across broad areas rather than in sun-exposed patterns. The distinction matters because it means you can identify which type of aging is dominating your face and target your interventions accordingly. If your skin shows significant sagging and yellowing despite consistent sunscreen use, glycation is likely a major contributor that no UV protection will address. Cigarette smoking compounds this further. A study by Cerami and colleagues published in PNAS in 1997 demonstrated that tobacco smoke contains reactive glycation products, and smokers have significantly higher Ag levels than non-smokers. Dickinson and colleagues published in PNAS in 2002, showing that nornicotine, a metabolite of nicotine, directly catalyzes aberrant protein glycation. So if you smoke and consume excess sugar, you are hitting your collagen with glycation from multiple directions simultaneously. There is a broader pattern here that connects all of these factors. UV, sugar, and smoking each damage skin through distinct primary mechanisms, but they all converge on the same outcomes: collagen loss, reduced elasticity, and visible aging. What makes glycation different from the other two is that it is the only one that most people are doing nothing about. UV protection is mainstream, smoking cessation campaigns are everywhere, but glycation from dietary sugar and high-heat cooking remains almost completely unaddressed in public health messaging and in the skincare industry. A 2016 paper by Nguyen and Kata in Skin Therapy Letter noted that tight glycemic control over a 4-month period can result in a reduction of glycated collagen formation by approximately 25%. That is a significant reduction from a dietary intervention alone, and it requires no cream, no procedure, and no prescription. It requires changing what you eat and how you cook it. The practical approach, supported by the evidence, is to address both pathways simultaneously. Use sunscreen to block the UV-driven MMP cascade that degrades collagen. And reduce glycation by cutting sugar intake, switching to moist heat cooking methods, and supporting your glycoxidation enzyme system. Together, these two strategies cover the major modifiable drivers of skin aging. Covering only one is like locking your front door while leaving the back door wide open. There is one more piece of evidence that puts this in perspective. Skin autofluorescence is a non-invasive way to measure Ag accumulation in skin, validated by Meerwalt and colleagues in 2004. Research published in Diabetes Technology and Therapeutics by Coetzee and colleagues in 2010 showed that skin autofluorescence increases linearly with age, with a correlation of 0.531, and also correlates with smoking status, diabetes duration, and HbA1c. This measurement captures the cumulative glycation burden in your tissue. It is objective, reproducible, and completely independent of UV exposure. A study in Frontiers in Endocrinology in 2025 confirmed that skin autofluorescence is associated with incident type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and mortality, making it a biomarker of biological age, not just skin age. So where does all of this leave us? Sun damage and glycation are both real, both significant, and both damaging your skin through fundamentally different mechanisms. UV degrades collagen through enzymatic pathways. Glycation cross-links collagen through non-enzymatic pathways. They compound each other through glycoxidation, where UV accelerates Ag formation and Ags make UV more destructive. Sunscreen addresses one pathway. Reducing sugar intake and changing cooking methods addresses the other. Most people are doing nothing about glycation, which means they are fighting with only half their weapons. For anyone ready to address the glycation side, Sugar-Proof Skin gives you the complete 28-day plan. And the Anti-Age's Kitchen gives you 60 recipes built around anti-glycation ingredients and low-Ag cooking methods. Both are linked in the description. If this video changed how you think about skin aging, subscribe because the next videos break down even more of what the skincare industry is not telling you. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.